Gates of Fire by Steven Pressfield is a story of the Battle of Thermopylae. Now this one was recommended by Patrick Leo. He has a list of like standalone fantasy. This was a historical fiction. It's not really a fantasy, but there's no fantastical elements in it. But this one is also, I think it's required reading for the U.S. Marines, because one of the commandants, which is like the highest honor of a Marine, put it on the list, so like you have to read it. Among other books on that list are Ender's Game, Ready Player One. There's like other books about, like, I think mostly non-fictions about like warrior stuff. But so this one was on there. I wanted to read it just because Patrick said it was good. This one's about a low-level sort of conscript who survived the battle and is recounting it to the king of Greece, I believe. I'm not really sure. There's a lot of names in this book. It's very stark and grim. It's battle heavy. They really go into like the main character's backstory, pretty brutal backstory. But it's, they paint the picture that it's a very primal world where you fight or you die. And you know, you wish you could have peace, but if an army shows up at your door and you don't repel them, they'll basically sack everything and assault everyone and do whatever they want, because that's the way of the world back in the day. And Persia was a huge army. And the thing that pissed me off the most about this book was that it's probably more accurate for the Greeks and the Spartans and the Persians. But the movie 300 does such a big disservice to the story. I mean, obviously 300 is based off of a graphic novel, and the graphic novel doesn't even have like fantastical elements, but Zack Snyder was like, let's put bladed monsters, let's have a hunchback in there, let's have elephants, and now that stuff's in this book. This is a more bear down sort of strategy where like the Spartans wore armor, and that's not in the 300 movie, and they also had like a sort of like fighting style where they use shields and spears to like sort of build a wall of death, and they really get into the tactics and the training. There's a lot of characters in this book, a lot of coming-of-age story, equal parts war, some emotional dissonance going on. You know, it's a pretty sad book in parts. Sometimes you get lost in the sort of the wave of the battle and stuff like that. They just sort of give you a lot of cliff notes of sorts of how things turn out, because it's all, you know, historical fiction. It's just made up, but you know, it was still enjoyable, but I didn't love it. I mean, it was really visceral at times, because they tell you, I don't know, they just made up the toxic masculinity part, but there's a lot of like, you know, scenes of like people going like, what are you, a woman? You crying? You know, like, how dare you? You should, you know, go make me bread then, woman. And I didn't really like that. You can't really say if that happened or not back in the day, but Spartans were very into macho-ness, you know, they were very into like, you know, if you're not strong, stay at home type of mentality. But overall, the book was still intriguing. There's a pretty shocking trigger warning at the beginning of the book. So if you're sensitive to a grape scene, then yeah, I almost stopped reading because of that. But I pushed on, listening to the whole audio book. It was an interesting read. I don't really read historical fiction, but this one was pretty good. It wasn't great. So I give Gates of Fire a 3 out of 5.